Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Toilets of Titles. My name is Justin Stevens. I'm coming back at you guys real quick here for another team-by-team breakdown. Tonight's episode is the Patriots. I know that's going to be a big surprise to some of you who know that I am a huge Colts fan. That's the little surprise there for you, Dan. I didn't know if you were aware of that or not.
Listen, I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say.
As you can see, I've gotten into character tonight. I try to wear the team colors of all the different teams. So for tonight, though, I decided to go with lumberjack, hilljack, whatever you guys call it up there in the Northeast. So I've got the curly beard going, just like our boy Josh. I know, Josh, you don't live up there anymore, but yeah, it looks trim now. I saw you on that app. What was that app you were talking about earlier? Your picture for the Sports Me app. Yeah, it looked clean, man. Yesterday. It looked almost like it was a for a dating app there for a second. All right, so real simple, real quick. I want to go over some house cleaning items here. I just gotta throw up some banners here. Make sure you guys check us out on Twitter. It's at Toilets of Titles. Of course, our main host at Coach Sheps, myself at JustinFF_. The rest of the Twitter handles will be scrolling down there at the bottom. Let's see. Don't forget to check us out or hit that like, that subscribe to help us out, to help out our numbers. I'll probably hit some more house cleaning stuff later as I'm thinking about it. The first guy I want to introduce here, though, is FF_doormat. It's Matt Hatton, our guy from down under. He's actually one of our guys for Toilets of Titles. He's been helping us out, running his own show with Ben, and doing a hell of a job. So if any of you guys are tuning in for the first time, they talk dynasty football, but they also talk a lot about what it's like to be an NFL fan in Australia, and some of that stuff is extremely interesting to me. So, Matt, I know this is morning time for you. So, how's it going, buddy?
Mate, I'm doing wonderfully well. A little bit hectic in the Hatton household. Is a million things going on. My puppy's going crazy. Daughter's a bit sick. I just bought a charcoal griller, so I'm going to fire that up, cook some ribs a little bit later.
Yeah, it sounds like that streaming connection needs a little bit more time to catch up from Australia. But so I'm going to jump right on over into introducing Joshua here, a returning guest, multiple returning guests. He's also kind of he's not kind of. He's a huge supporter of ours. We're a huge supporter of his. We lost Matt. Hopefully he can come back on. But
oh, no.
Don't forget to check out Joshua. It's at FusionFFB, but also his website, FusionFFB.com, where you can check out a lot of different articles, a lot going on. His rankings, which are always – that's actually how I kind of stumbled upon Joshua, was through it was through Twitter initially, but I actually started to become a big fan of the guys by looking at his rankings and his spreadsheets. You can tell this man puts a lot of work and effort into it. At generally_where. Josh, how are we doing tonight?
Doing great. You failed to mention, you can always find Toilets of Titles stuff on FusionFFB.com, articles that some of you guys have written, including Matt. So you can find that stuff there too, for now at least.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you mean for now?
I don't know, until you guys, find somewhere to put it that people actually will see it and read it.
No, I don't know about all that now.
But, I'm happy to have you there and meet
yeah. Don't get me wrong. I hope you're right, but I hope that the place that we need to post it for people to read it is on your website.
that works too. Let's do it.
Yeah. So as a resident Colts fan for the Toilets and Titles team, this episode absolutely kills me. It does hurt me. But as soon as I realized I was doing an episode for every single team, obviously, Josh, I had to bring you on. You and I have a lot of fun banter in the Fusion chat. So we like to bust each other's chops. And Dan down below here wasted absolutely no time, as you all heard when we first started off, by apologizing. Cold. So yeah, no, it's all good. I'm gonna do all I can to keep it, as clean and positive as possible. So So I'm going to let you have the floor here, but you guys can check Dan at the spots down below at AWL Sabermetrics at Undroppables and the undroppables.com. How's it going, Dan?
Good. Glad to be here. Really excited to talk Patriots. I mean, I feel like, I go on streams or pods and I always end up talking about the Patriots and people, like, we get it. So, I'm glad that we can talk about it in a safe spot. Sorry to you. But yeah, excited to talk about the squad this year, especially after the draft.
Yeah, no, definitely a safe spot here for sure. I don't take anything too personal anymore. That's for sure. But I do want to remind everybody, or at least not even remind you, I want to let you all know that this week we actually started our what's it called? Shoot. And I actually just our Patreon. That's what it's called. We started our Patreon for the first time this week, and unfortunately that's live, so I'm not going to be able to edit that out. But so our Patreon, go to the Patreon, type in Toilets to Titles. I say it all the time, but you would be shocked to see that when you type in Toilets to Titles in the search, we are the only ones that pop up. For some unknown reason, nobody else ever thought to have that name. So we're easy to find on there, and we have 3 tiers. Obviously, any support that you guys want to give us, we would greatly appreciate you. But guys, I say we just jump right into this thing. I want to talk right off the bat. Earlier, Joshua, I know this is kind of leaning a little bit away from the Patriots, but only like kind of briefly. But it might lead us into a good conversation here. You had mentioned in the Fusion chat that you were curious to see if Cam Newton was still going to be able to get another job after this year. Obviously, we are all assuming that he's going to lose that starting spot, if not at some point during this season, then definitely most likely after this season. If they spend a first-round pick on a quarterback, that's typically the way that the road goes down. So I'm going to throw that question right back at you, Joshua. What do you think? Do you think that Cam Newton is going to be viable and still young enough and able to play well enough to secure another spot?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I've been thinking about it a little while because I mean, I of course, as always, I'm in the middle of a startup dynasty best ball, and we're getting into the double digits, and I'm starting to think about late round quarterbacks, and I'm looking at Cam Newton there, and I'm like, I mean, it's a dynasty, but then I thought, well, hey, he's not that old, right? I mean, trying to figure out how old he is here. Actually,
He's what, 31, right?
Come to me. Yeah, I only thought he was like 31, 32. I don't know why it's not telling me plainly here.
32.
There it is, 32.
That's not bad.
And 10 days. I guess happy birthday 10 days ago, kid. So that's awesome, Rich. That's awesome. Thanks. Showing off my site. That's great. So yeah, I don't see why he can't land somewhere. I do think, like you said, most likely he's moving on next year, but I think he can legitimately move on somewhere else. I mean, there's lots of team that need somebody. If he plays well and can show that he can still throw the ball, show that he was able to adapt to Bill's system and be productive there, then I'm pretty sure other places are going to be confident they can bring him in and at least get. I mean, look, who's been floating around the league lately? Dalton, even Flacco. I mean, come on, if they can do it, then Cam Newton can.
Yeah, and even to that point, look at a team like Washington, where even a lot of people kind of tied Cam back to Rivera there. They only have Fitzgerald for a year. If Cam shows out well, you could see him just going down 95 a little bit and running that team. I think it's tough because like he had bursts of like really good football, and then he had stretches of not good football. So he'll be in the league as far as he wants to. I think it's going to be the biggest question is if he wants to be a starter. So if a team wants to sign him as a backup, that's where does he really want to do that? And that's where I don't know where he's at in that aspect.
He went such a long time without being signed last year that's what kind of gave me pause to even ask the question. But I think as long as he has a successful, and by successful I mean he looks good, he's a productive season. Hopefully that means a winning season.
Yeah,
but it doesn't mean that you're going to win the Super Bowl or anything. So it's just a matter of if he can show out enough to get people interested again.
Right on. Hey, Matt, I know you might have missed that question, but I'm actually just going to lead right into the next question for you. Let's just jump right into the biggest topic at hand, and that is the new first-round draft pick, the new quarterback to be for the Patriots. Mac Jones, do we really think that he's the real deal? And Matt, do you think that he's going to be able to take this team over and continue maybe not obviously a legacy like we've seen over the last 2 decades with the Patriots, it seems, but but at least back to being the winning team that's constantly in that playoff hunt? Do you think Mac Jones has that ability?
Yes. So I've heard he's got a 2 Super Bowl floor, so I'll be happy with that. But yeah, I think for the price they paid, round 15, we didn't have to move up. I think it's worth a shot. I was sort of hoping that we would have grabbed Fields. He kept dropping. But Jones is probably a better fit for our system, I guess. So yeah, I'm expecting Cam to sort of start for half the year or so, and then probably Jones come in, in a favourable matchup.
Yeah, I was with you. Like I was driving home actually from Massachusetts, listening to the draft, and like as Fields kept dropping, I was like, let's go. He gets to 11, and like whatever I was listening to said like there's been a trade up, and like I pulled into my driveway so ecstatic, and then it said Chicago Bears, and I just sat in my car for 10 minutes, just silent. I was so mad. I'm okay with Mac. My biggest thing was like I just didn't want to trade up for him. Having him fall to 15, I think is like I'm excited. He seems I can sell myself on him. But what's nice is like if he sucks, we didn't lose any draft picks. Where like all the other teams to like get their quarterbacks had to move up. So yeah, it's not giving anything up is great for him because in theory we can just move on and take someone else, even as soon as next year because we're not really tied to him multiple drafts down the road. That's me.
I agree. That's a great point. We were all hanging out, some of us, even titles people here that night. And yeah, I was hoping Fields too, but I agree. It's nice that he fell to 15, which initially, people didn't even think that was going to happen.
So I was kind of viewing Mac Jones going into the draft as kind of a bit of an Eli Manning level type of player that you don't really know at first, but he has that potential to maybe be a long-term quarterback for a team that like I guess in a way, kind of like a Kirk Cousins in a way where you think that he could definitely perform pretty well. He could keep the starting job. He can hang on to it. I just don't know that he has that it factor to put him over the top. So that's why I was kind of surprised to see the Patriots take him, knowing that they are a win at all costs sort of team. I kind of felt like he didn't have that it factor that a winning dynasty team would be looking for, So I was kind of surprised to see that. So to hear you guys mention that, hey, if it doesn't work out, we didn't trade up to get him. Maybe we're still in for a quarterback next year. That's all very interesting to me. At that point, it kind of seems like a wasted first round pick, but at 15 without trading up to get him, it really is worth the risk. So yeah, it makes sense to me for sure.
Well, I would say actually really quickly, kind of like the it factor thing. I think the more I've even learned about him too, I don't know if that's true. I guess the behind the scenes is he is like super, super fiery. Like he's very vocal, very angry. He'll yell at himself, yell at other players. I guess very Tom Brady-esque in that sense. I think that my favorite story was when he was running the scout team offense. He was throwing touchdowns against the starting defense and Saban told him to stop. And he's like, tell your defense to stop me. I mean, stuff like that, like that's to me, like that's a little bit of that it factor that Saban would have told Belichick, whereas like this kid has a little something to him. So, he's not mobile, but he's mobile in the pocket. So I think like his competitiveness is going to kind of translate. So I think he still has that it factor. He's just not like super, super athletic.
You also have to understand the psychology of Patriots fans that we've all been
Mm.
trained by Bill Belichick to think of these things very pragmatically.
Yes.
So when we say, "Oh well, if he doesn't work on it, we'll take another one next year," it's just that's just the if you're good, you do your job, you get to play. It doesn't matter what you signed for, what the pick you were. If you play good, you get to play. If you don't, you're gone, or you're sitting until you're gone. Like, once you're on the team, it's all the same.
So Josh wants to know if the Patriots fan base, when Jones was initially picked, were they enthusiastic or not?
I was still sad about Justin Fields.
I was enthusiastic because it was potential, whereas before we didn't have it. I mean, I know we were just talking about Cam Newton, but wherever Cam Newton's going to go, he's going to be somewhere where they're waiting for the next thing too. Like, no one is from this time on going to be expecting Cam Newton to actually lead them somewhere. He's just going to always be a holdover like Dalton and all of them have been. Best case for him. That's just reality of it. But we didn't have anything. We just needed something. So there was enthusiasm that we got a guy who fell to us, and there's enthusiasm that he legitimately has the talent. I know a lot of people love like dogging on him, pictures and all that stuff. But the passing stats were there, and I don't know how much we want to say that's just Alabama. I am someone that thinks that the receivers help a quarterback a lot, but a quarterback helps receivers too. So how much of that was Devonta Smith and for a while Waddle being really good, and how much was Mac Jones actually making Devonta Smith look good? And I'm not enough of a film guy to break that down and differentiate it, but I think for them to be as good as they were, the answer is pretty much they're both good.
So, and that's I think so one of a guy at the Undroppables, Jax Falcone, has talked about that, where it's just like either Mac Jones is really good or the wide receivers are really good, but like someone has to be really, really awesome in that situation. So is it Mac Jones, the unathletic quarterback? Is it 160-pound Devonta Smith that's secretly not, like, it has to be somebody. And realistically, it's probably all of them in some level. I think, I think he has what the Patriots want. And to like Joseph right there, right? It's a fresh new start. And like you were saying, it's a fresh start. It is. I think that's what is going to be exciting, is he's going to bring a lot of stuff to this offense. People like to dog on him for that reason. Like, oh, he played at Alabama with a good offensive line. Patriots have a really good offensive line. Oh, he played at Alabama with really good wide receivers. Patriots don't have that. But like no one brought that up for Tua. Tua had far better weapons than what Mac Jones worked with, but look at Mac's stats. And as much as people want to try to like wish away what Waddle and Smith said, they both said very, very good things about Mac Jones. And they've had the opportunity to like go back and pump Tua's tires, and I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
If Mac Jones is bad, then like Devonta Smith should have been our wide receiver 1.
Like 101, yeah, like over Trevor Lawrence. Like,
yeah, that's a fair point. I do want to point out the irony here that Joseph is posting that you guys should be enthusiastic because of the fresh start and the new era and the new potential, but he has Daniel Jones as his avatar. So he's a diehard Giants fan, so I can bust his chops. What about this right here? What kind of weapons do we have for Mac Jones there in New England? I mean, I know that the Patriots did go out and pick up Aguilar in the offseason. They picked up Kendrick Bourne, Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith. So I feel like they have weapons there, and at least for the beginning of the season, those are Cam's weapons. In my mind, they're kind of weapons that are set up to help Cam Newton in this offense. So I don't personally think that Mac Jones is going to be taking over this year, but I'm also on the outside looking in. I'd like to hear from some Patriots fans here on weapons around Cam Newton are going to be enough to really support Cam Newton this season.
Yeah, I think a lot of people hated the Aguilar signing for the money, and honestly, it doesn't bother me as much. Like, it's a 2-year deal. Like, that doesn't sink a franchise. And I also think Aguilar is a much better real life player than I think fantasy Twitter likes to give him credit for. But the 2 tight ends, Hunter Henry is awesome. He's very good. And Jonnu Smith is very athletic and has improved it. But I think the biggest thing for Jonnu last year was supposed to be kind of his breakout. He had a high ankle, or I think it was a high ankle sprain. And I think that killed him for, listen, huge Jonnu Smith fan as well. So I'm right there with you. I think that kind of like really derailed his season. So I think like there's a lot of really good real life football players around him. But people are going to look at, Kendrick Bourne, Aguilar, and overlook Jacoby Myers as like not good fantasy players and just assume like they're all trash. And I don't think that's true.
Yeah, this offense, honestly, it seems like it's built for Cam Newton more than Mac Jones. And so, I mean, that's kind of why I say if Cam Newton's doing it, I don't know if Mac Jones is going to get to play until maybe the last couple games when they're technically out of the playoffs. I mean, if that even happens, I mean, they could make the playoffs conceivably, wild card, especially we got extra ones now. So I really don't. That's why I just kind of circle back. We already talked a little bit, but I could see Cam Newton playing the entire season.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the weapons around him, I agree completely. How have I described it about Aguilar? He's not as good as we initially hoped, but not as bad as he looked at first, but not as good as we hoped he was after his 3rd season, but not as bad as we thought he was after that, but not as good as we thought he was after he was catching all those touchdowns with the Raiders. But not as bad as everyone thought he was when he started just not being very good at the end of last season.
And Joshua can only say that on shows because you can't fit all that in a tweet. All right.
So somewhere between all those not as good and not as bad, that's right where Nelson is. No, he fits because he's a deep guy, and he's not one of these. We like to talk about deep guys as just these speedster guys, but he's got the speed, but he's actually pretty decent at actually tracking down the ball too, if he can catch it. But that fits this whole setup because they've got the tight ends, the running game, and Cam Newton is better at throwing deep ball than people like to give him credit for. And so it fits for this, deep strike every now and then, run the ball, quick out, chuck it deep. I mean, it's set up. In some ways, I hate to say it because I know that it seems too predictable almost for a Belichick team because it's like, well, we know what you're doing. It's obvious. But so I'm almost waiting for them to pull, the rug out on us and they're going to do something completely different. But
it is. I think, the running back room is, I don't know. Like, actually, I'm really curious to hear from your guys' opinion. So, like, the people, especially like on Twitter, talking more and more about like Sony Michel being a cut candidate. I don't know the football reason behind it. Like, they save, I think, $2 or $3 million. They don't really need the money, but like, I don't get the football reason why they would cut him. Is it just purely because of Ramondre?
There was rumors about them trying to trade him at some point, which made no sense to me either. Cause I was like, what in the world are you going to trade him for, a 7th rounder? Like, yeah. So I think that kind of contributed to it. That was a sign that they wanted to get rid of him. But short of that, yeah, I don't see him actually being cut. He's just going to hang around as depth.
Yeah, I mean, he's final year of his deal. Like, that's the thing that, like, and I don't know, actually, like, I thought when he came back last year, like, some of his box scores didn't look good, but like him actually playing, like, if you watch him, like, he ran pretty well. So, the New England style of just like having a ton of running backs, and now with Ramondre, yeah, is like, they're just gonna like, Sony gets a carry, Damon gets a carry, Ramondre gets a carry, James White gets a catch, and like just cycle and repeat. Like, it's going to be it's going to be like fresh legs, but for fantasy, it's going to be awful.
As usual for the Patriots. So, Rich, you guys were talking about Aguilar a moment ago, and this would not be a Toilets and Titles episode if I didn't give Rich his chance to get a Raiders post up here. So there you go. You can go back and pause it if you really wanted to look at it. All right, so Matt. Matt, we just talked a lot about the offense while you were gone. I want to touch on the defense a bit before we get out of here because I kind of felt like last season – the defense, with all of them opting out of the season because of COVID, I really thought that defense was going to look a lot worse than they did. I feel like they did pretty well considering the circumstances. So, Matt, now that the Patriots have most of their defense coming back, they've signed a lot of key players. What do you think? You think they have the potential for a top 5, top 10 defense this year?
Look, maybe top 10. I'm pretty happy that they didn't trade Gilmore. There was some talk of that, so I think that's key for us. He's still with us for now, anyway. So yeah, with everyone coming back and hopefully with a full off season, without too much COVID impact, it's wheels up. I still think they're a little bit underrated, but you're just excited to see what happens this year.
Yeah, I think for defense, it's almost like a little bit of an embarrassment of riches where like, I don't even know if they have enough like spots for like Matt Judon, but like Lawrence Guy's a stud. That's just like very underrated. Kyle Van Noy coming back is huge. The secondary is obviously very good with JC Jackson and Fillmore and Gill. Like this defense is going to be very good with, Uche coming out and probably doing a little bit better. Winovich, hopefully, like learning to play his role a little bit better, but like still get after the quarterback. I think it's going to be another like run the ball and let the defense just like stifle teams. I think they're going to be very good.
Yeah, and for fantasy purposes, that's the reason I was asking because I'm kind of targeting them as a top 5 defense for fantasy purposes.
Yeah.
And with mostly because of the fact that the offense is going to be, run heavy offense. That means the defense theoretically shouldn't be on the field all that often. So those yards against and points against aren't really going to stack up. So I guess it obviously depends on your scoring format. Matt, we got another question here for you from Joseph. He wants to know how you became a Pats fan being from Australia.
I was just a Celtics fan. Everyone loved the Bulls and Michael Jordan, and one of my mates was a Celtics fan, so followed the Celtics, followed the Red Sox, and then it was just a natural to go over to Pats and Bruins.
Right on.
Worked out pretty well.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure you talked about that on the Toilets Titles Down Under podcast too. So if you want a little bit more in-depth view on how Matt became a NFL fan in general, but much less a Patriots fan, you can always go back and revisit those episodes.
I think it's the second episode, right?
Yeah. Second episode.
Second one, yeah. We talked about our journey.
Yeah. So
listen to Don Line. You get like 1 or 2 games maybe, and a few highlights, and that was about it back in the day.
Yeah, but the best was the story about you recording the games on a tape recorder overnight and then waking up and listening to the games. That was AJ, yeah. So he'd record it on a video recorder and then transpose it to a cassette and then put it in his tape deck. That is insane.
So yeah, we're so spoiled now, aren't we? You got your 20-minute games, or hour games, or Game Pass. You can watch it, whenever from wherever. So yeah, a little bit spoiled now. But yeah, AJ was sort of going to all lengths to.
Listen, that's dedication.
Yeah. And not for nothing. Like I like to listen to a lot of those like thunderstorms at night on YouTube to kind of ease myself to sleep. Just the gorgeous voice that you get,
Dan, what
from Australians when they're talking on Toilets and Titles. I mean, just go ahead and pull it up on the YouTube.
No, I do put people to sleep. I've heard that before. So.
Not exactly what I meant, but
I thought that was going to transition to a Patriots dig, but I'm a little disappointed now.
Oh no, it's not a dig. It's not a dig at all. Like,
I thought you were going to talk about how boring it was listening to Patriots games, but anyway.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's never boring. It's just frustrating. That's all for 31 other team fans out there anyway. But no, I do have one last question for you guys. We're kind of hitting a 30-minute limit here, but the last question I've been asking all of these shows, and it's been kind of interesting to see some of the answers I've been getting, because even within the same show, I'm getting different answers from the different guys. What do you see to be a successful season, but at the end of the season? What would you say, you know what, this was a successful season. I'm happy with the way the season went. Let's move on from here. Or on the back end of that, what if at the end of the season, what would it take for you to think, man, this was an absolutely waste of a season. It was miserable. I did not like the way this season went. So there's kind of two aspects there. So I'll let anybody who's ready to jump in and answer that go ahead and jump in first. And this is what usually happens.
It'd be a successful season. There's kind of two forks, right? There's two paths they could take. It's successful if Cam Newton hits and he's playing well, and we actually make a playoff run. That's a success. And in the meantime, we know that Mac Jones is there learning, and that's okay. He can wait a year. On the flip side, it's a success if Cam Newton's just not doing great, or something else happens, unfortunately, and we get to see Mac Jones thrown in, maybe ahead of schedule, but we get to see him actually play well. And that doesn't mean he has to be making a playoff run. It just means we get to see what he's capable of. And it's something that gives us confidence going forward that we don't need to be drafting another quarterback next year. Now, on the flip side, it's going to be a failure if we have a bad team playing bad all season and Cam Newton keeps starting. To me, that would be like worst case.
Yeah, and that was actually, to that point, like, that's what drove me crazy most of the second half of the year last year, was like the offense just like wasn't great. The defense was and Cam was just out there. And like I kept pounding the table, like, start Stidham. And I'd have Patriots fans like, Stidham sucks. If he was good, he would start. And I'd have to explain, I don't care if Stidham sucks. Like, I want him to suck. Because if Cam got us to pick 15, Stidham could have got us to pick like 4 or 5 or 3 or 7 or like 11.
Yeah,
11, exactly. And I kept having to explain, like, listen, if Stidham sucks and starts, that's probably better. So that would be the worst case scenario, is that if Cam just like through health reasons or for whatever reason just like doesn't work out, and Belichick just doesn't transition to Mac, and it's just like another middling 500-ish type team. That would be the worst case scenario. If the bottom falls out and Mac Jones starts and sucks and we're a top 10 pick, okay. Like, yeah, it would suck, but like Josh was saying, like, move on. Perfect. But being another like 500 team with like nothing to look forward to, that would be frustrating.
Yeah, I agree with what you guys said. And just another thing, I guess, just better quarterback play generally would be a successful season. Obviously, in the middle that's where it's frustrating. We finish with 10 wins, something like that. That's not really going to do us anything. But having to watch Brian Hoyer go down to the Chiefs was pretty painful. So anything's better than that. That was a frustrating game. So I haven't got high hopes, but just some decent quarterback play would be good.
And I honestly, I lied because I forgot. I wanted to mention their schedule just a little bit here. Tied for the 27th strength of schedule, so they've got a decent schedule ahead of them. And some of the best teams they're playing, they're actually at home to go up against them. And then also, it's kind of cool that they get to play against Tampa Bay in Week 4. So Tom Brady's going to be coming back to New England. They've got the Cowboys are always a big haul as far as traveling. Their fans like to travel pretty well. They get to face Justin Herbert in Los Angeles, so flying across country. Just a lot of really interesting games. And then, of course, obviously, Week 15 they play the Colts, and this one's actually going to be at Indianapolis. And that's right after a Week 14 Belichick bye week. So again, they get the Colts right in a good spot for a typical Bill Belichick team. And of course, they get to start off with a couple easy division games and that sort of thing. So your typical Patriots easy cush schedule. Yeah, you know what? 35 minutes. 35 minutes, guys. I did a great job. I did a hell of a job. 35 minutes. I couldn't help myself.
Come on. And Justin, all the good things I say about Carson Wentz and Indy on Twitter, and you still just
Yeah, I tell you, dude, Carson, Joshua and Matt, you guys can attest to this. I was not pleased at all as a Colts fan last year with Phillip Rivers. There was everything was horrible about that situation. You know what? I'll take Carson Wentz. I'll take Carson Wentz all day over Phillip Rivers. So, but anyway, we need to cut out of here. But real quick, I just want to kind of show the love here. As soon as I find your, there we go. So we've got Dan. AWL Sabermetrics. What does AWL stand for?
So it's a complete inside joke that I think only one person on Twitter understands other than me, which is fantastic. Apparently no one in fantasy Twitter listens to Pardon My Take, which it's the number one sports podcast in the United States, but it's from Barstool. Listen to it. It's very good. But
from Barstool, are they number one because Barstool says they're number one?
No, they actually are.
Oh, okay.
And it's not what you'd think it is. They have like really, really great guests, and it's really good. Anyways, so AWL just stands for like award-winning listener, which is an inside joke to their podcast. And Sabermetrics, they would make fun of Sabermetrics in sports. So like they would make fun of like in baseball, it's like this person hit 700 at 4:05 at night against a lefty throwing 86. Yeah. So like they would do a segment making fun of stuff like that. So like my name is just a entirely inside dumb joke about like sports fans and like sports media like being too full of themselves.
Very nice. Very nice. I like that. I like it. Don't forget to check out Dan, the undroppables.com at the undroppables. And here lately I have been trying to listen to a little bit more of your guys' episodes. So, so I do like what I'm hearing, obviously, or I wouldn't have had you on. There's plenty of Patriots fans out there that I could have plucked, but I'm lucky that I got the three that are not super arrogant. But I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yeah.
And Joshua is next. I'm gonna give you your outro here. Joshua, nothing but love between the two of us. I really appreciate you coming on again. And for those of you that don't know, Joshua and I do not see eye to eye on a lot of things outside of football, but yet we're still good friends because that's just the way we're built. So if that says anything for you, that's the kind of guy he is. So at generally_aware at FusionFFB, FusionFFB.com. Check out our articles and all that stuff. So, Josh, I appreciate you coming on, my friend.
And the real Patriots fans out there will understand my Twitter handle.
You mean because of you want to be the opposite of Gillette?
No, generally aware.
See, he doesn't get it.
I don't.
Go to Matt.
I don't get it. You know what? We'll talk about it off air because obviously you're not going to tell me right now. Matt, my boy Matt.
Real Patriots fans to get.
Yeah.
Well, actually, if that's the case, I don't want to know then. All right. Obviously, Matt is my boy. He came on to be a part of our team recently, and they're doing killer work for us down there in Australia. Matt, I appreciate you coming on. I know you had a hell of a horrible morning so far, and you're toughing it out. You're toughing the internet connection, and you're coming on to help us out just because you committed, and that's the kind of commitment you have. So appreciate you and all you do. Check out Matt at FF_doormat and check out his article on Fusion FFB as well.
Thanks, guys.
Right on. Have a great night, everybody.
See you.